Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Aviators South Africa podcast, Aviation Sunday, episode 17. My name is Kabir, and I'm the host on the show with Warwick. Today on the show, we'll be joined by our fellow aviation enthusiast, Thomas.
Today on the show, we'll be talking about the reason why cabin lights are dim during takeoff and landing, the Atlas Air Boeing 767 incident, and more. Please make use of the live chat and comment section below. We'd love to personally interact with you throughout the episode.
So, big thank you and special one to African Pilot Magazine. Subscribe to Africa's finest aviation magazine today. For more information, go to www.africanpilot.co.za.
The takeoff and landing procedures are always the same. We are all used to putting our tray tables away, seats into the upright position, and fastening our seatbelts. These things are pretty normal and are expected when it comes to personal safety. A less obvious safety procedure is the dimming of lights in the cabin.
The dimming of the cabin lights shows that the flight is about to take off or is starting in its final descent. The main reason why this happens is to ensure your safety should there be an emergency on the aircraft.
Our eyes take several minutes to adjust to the change in lighting. Some need as many as 30 minutes to see with high visibility in the dark. In an emergency, this time could easily mean the difference between life or death. If your eyes have already adjusted, then you can read quicker during an emergency. In addition, a dimmer cabin light emergency markings are more visible outside the aircraft.
As the majority of accidents take place during takeoff and landing phases of flight, it's safer to dim the lights and prepare passengers to be fully ready to take emergency action should they need to. This is also why window blinds must be raised. This means that our eyes can adjust to the natural light outside. This could be day, night, sunrise, or sunset. Basically, we need to be ready for any situation should we need to exit the aircraft quickly and with full visibility.
Of course, dimming the cabin lights on overnight flights during the usual sleeping period is quite frankly to help passengers sleep and allow their eyes to relax.
Modern technology has taken this even further. Some new generation aircraft features additional lighting options which help minimize air sickness.
As an example, Qatar Airways is operating a new A350-1000 between London and Doha, which has a super modern and sophisticated lighting system. The ambient lighting has 16.7 million color combinations and is made out of LED lights. They therefore use low power and provide a high level of light.
So let's have a discussion about this. Now, as a regular traveler before COVID-19 struck, it was really interesting to me why the lights were always dimmed. I knew it was something to do with safety and it was something along those lines, but I had no idea about this level of thought and depth. And I think it's really interesting to see how much people actually care about this and how much thought went into this. Because, like Thomas was mentioning, it can take up to 30 minutes. And in an emergency situation, the legal requirement to evacuate an aircraft is 90 seconds. So 30 minutes versus 90 seconds, this is really interesting to see. Because if your eyes hadn't adjusted, and I know for a fact when I come out for the movies, for example, my eyes take a while to kind of, adjust. And I have to kind of find my bearings again. But what do you think, Tom or Warwick?
Well, I think I agree that it's definitely makes sense to let people's eyes adjust, and it's definitely good that they do it on all and not regardless of day or night, sunrise or sunset, or any other time of the day. And they basically do it just on every flight in its standard procedure. Whereas if they said, okay, well, it's daytime, so the light's not going to make much of a difference, but you've just been sleeping with your window blind closed, then actually it could make quite a bit of a difference. And I know we've got quite a few friends who sleep with eye masks. And if somebody's having a nap on a flight during the day, then it's not good because they could have their eye mask on, they're going to be used to the complete darkness, and then it's going to take time to adjust. So, Tom, what do you think on this?
So just just the one thing I find really, really cool about this light dimming is just how much thought and effort goes into actually these, even these small details. The amount of thought that goes into it is just, it's really, it just makes you think. Like, it's people put so much effort into this stuff, and it's just mind blowing to me.
Yes, I think so, and it's true. All of these regulations have really shifted over the past years, and how long it has taken. But another quick thing before we move on to the Atlas Air 767 engine incident: if we do have some connection issues or the sound quality is not the best, this is a live stream, and so it's not up to the usual standard of our episodes. But we are currently upgrading our studio setup for at-home remote podcast producing. So let's move on to the Atlas Air Boeing 767 engine incident.
Now we are going to talk about the Atlas Air 7 Boeing 767 incident. So, Cabs, why don't you start us off?
So the aircraft involved was a Boeing 767-300 with the registration November 64 Golf Tango. The aircraft is about 28 and a half years old and first flew with the now deficient Hungarian airline Malev, which has since gone under. It has since flown with China Southern and LAN Airlines. The aircraft has been with Atlas Air since May 2016. It was actually not too long ago, February 2019 actually, that an Atlas Air 767 suffered a fatal crash in Houston. And only now has the actual findings from the FAA come out on that crash.
On 5 September, passenger Atlas Air Boeing 767-300, heading for Honolulu to the U.S. territory of Guam, was forced to return to Honolulu.
Pilots made the decision after the aircraft's starboard engine had suffered repeated engine surges or compressor stalls. While the plane landed safely and no injuries were reported, some passengers' videos of the engine emitting flames were posted to the internet.
With 212 people on board, the aircraft was in the initial climb out of Honolulu's runway 08R when the crew declared an emergency. It was reported that the 767-300 was suffering a starboard engine, a CF6 failure due to repeated engine surges/compressor stalls. The engine was even emitting bangs and streaks of flame.
The aircraft stopped its climb at 2,000 feet. After going through the engine damage checklist, the crew shut down the engine and requested an ILS approach to runway 08 left. It landed without incident 30 minutes after departure.
And I mean, some video footage that was just playing up on the screen is actually very scary to look at. And I mean, that just shows you this is a passenger flight, and that's really quite something. But you know, at nearly 30 years old, having flown regular passenger services for most of his life, is this aircraft too old to be flying safely hundreds of passengers? What do you guys think? Warwick?
Well, for me, I definitely think that age shouldn't matter, should it have been maintained properly. And I mean, regarding that question, if it has been maintained properly, there shouldn't be an issue. However, if it hasn't been, it's an issue. And if I was the FAA, then I would definitely go and have a look and check out all of Atlas Air's other 767s, and I think just generally create an alert around the aviation industry, because I mean, maintenance is such an important key. Tom, what do you think?
You know, actually, I mean, I disagree, but I agree on some points. So I disagree that age doesn't matter. I think it definitely plays a role in how the aircraft, what happens. But I think maintenance plays a much bigger role, as you said. But just like a car, it can't last forever, and just when it does get old, then even no matter how much maintenance you'll have, you'll always have to retire it, because it just can't run forever. Uh, just things wear out, things break, and eventually it just goes beyond repair.
I think that's a fair point, Tom. But what I will say is it's slightly concerning because Atlas Air had a fatal crash just last year. And this crash was horrible. Thankfully, it wasn't a passenger flight, rather a cargo flight, but the pilots on board died. It was also a Boeing 767. And is there a pattern accumulating? Because although nobody died or passed away or the aircraft crashing, is there a pattern accumulating due to maintenance, for instance? And that's a question we may want to answer in another episode. It's very hard to see. Warwick?
I agree with you, Kabir. And quickly back to Tom's point on how he said that he doesn't really age matters. I partly agree on. He said that he doesn't. Yeah, sorry. I said I think I partly agree with him on that question and answer because he has a point by saying that eventually it becomes unrepairable and it's just beyond the state of function. But I think you've also got to look at the fact that a lot of the actual reason why people retire their aircraft is because of the maintenance costs, and it's not because of age, but rather because the age is causing the maintenance to be much higher because it has to be serviced and maintained much more thoroughly. And so I think that plays a major role in why aircraft are retired. And I suspect this 767 quite likely, after 30 years of service, is quite likely going to be retired. And what do you think?
Sorry, Warwick, I think Warwick's connection just cut out. But Tom, what do you think about this?
Just back to what you said on the last crash as well. I think definitely there's a pattern accumulating. Maybe it does show um, how this airline actually maintains their aircraft. Maybe there is a problem there. Maybe something needs to be looked at more thoroughly, or maybe something's going wrong. But I mean, it just could be a coincidence. You never know. But I think it is more likely that it's a problem with the maintenance.
Yes, and we're now going to move on to Boom Supersonic Eyes the Race for Supersonic US Air Force One. So, Boom Supersonic has just announced that the company will be partnering with the US Air Force to produce the new Supersonic Air Force One. Together, they'll be trying to build a sustainable supersonic aircraft for the high level government officials as well as the US president.
Boom Supersonic is one of the main players in the race to create a sustainable supersonic passenger aircraft. The company is well into its supersonic aircraft program.
This new partnership is going to bring supersonic aircraft to the US government. There's currently a big need to travel government officials to cities around the world in record time. Boom Supersonic partnered with Japan Airlines, JAL, and the Virgin Group. The question is, how realistic is all of this, and will there be a demand for supersonic air travel in the next few years?
I think that's the real question, Tom. Is there going to be a demand? I mean, currently we're only looking at is there a demand for travel, you know? And up on the screen we have the interior of the aircraft, and it's a very futuristic look, and it's really nice and clean, and it applies to the modern day business traveler. And I could see how they could adjust this to suit the president. But is it going to fly in South Africa? What is it going to look like? There are many other players in the supersonic market. But Warwick, what do you think?
Well, I definitely think that supersonic air travel could be a reality within the next few years. But you've also got to look at the time currently. I mean, there's not much travel, number one, but also if everybody is so focused on being super environmentally friendly. And I mean, we look specifically at KLM, they're putting in tons and tons of hours researching and figuring how they can make air travel more economical for them and just generally for the airline community. So I think there is a role for it in the future, but I don't think it's going to have a very big role, as I think a lot of the aircraft manufacturers were expecting. But record time definitely, I think, will have a role in the future and will be very important. I can see that happening, and I can, yeah, it's not really, what's the word I'm trying to say? Sorry. It's not really sufficient. It's not going to sustain itself because it's just so uneconomical. And also, supersonic aircraft is super loud, and a lot of governments are, very aware of the noise from supersonic aircraft. Tom?
I actually 100% agree with you. I mean, just on the environmental and COVID related things, just it's really, if you were going to release a supersonic aircraft, I don't think now would be the time to do it, especially for the public. I think for government officials, it may be a different story because they do actually have to travel around the world as fast as possible. But I think for the public, it's really not going to work, um, especially at the current time. Also, the environmental concern. I mean, we are in the middle of like almost a crisis, if you would say. I mean, with global warming coming around and everything, I don't think this is the time to release a plane that can destroy the environment. Quite frankly.
I think it's true, Tom. I think environmental standpoint is the issue. And we know for a fact this aircraft is not going to be electric, but it's about how fuel efficient it can be. And when we are jet setting off all around the world, I think when we are other manufacturers such as KLM, their flying V concept has just come out, and they're not looking at getting electrical in terms of their engine, but rather keeping it simple. But making it, it would cut the fuel consumption by nearly 80%. And that's an insane amount when we look at long haul flying, etc. So the question is, how is this aircraft going to work? It certainly looks very beautiful and it's very similar to Concorde. But we're going to have to wait and see how the aircraft turns out. Obviously, they haven't yet even flown a prototype flight, but this is clearly the intention to show that the US government is in the race for supersonic Air Force One. So we hope that you enjoyed this episode with us. Apologies. We hope you enjoyed this episode with us. It's been wonderful having Warwick and Thomas in the studio with us. If you don't know already, the Aviators St. Helena is a new division of the Aviators South Africa. We release content to our current Aviators SA YouTube channel in partnership with St. Helena Airport Limited. So please go check it out. What we're also going to be doing is we do have a membership program on at the moment, and the membership price is 65 Rand per month. You can pull out at any time. It's going to be a fortnightly members live streams is the format, in similar to these, but we'll be having more of a discussion-based live stream. And so that is us. And that's how our membership is going to work. Please remember to subscribe, hit the like button, and remember to enable notifications so that you'll get notified when we release a new video. Stay safe and happy flying. See you next week on the Aviators South Africa.